sisters. This is Dr. William Schnoebelen coming to you again from With One Accord Ministries with another Treasure Guardians teaching. And it happens that this time of year, it happens that we're filming this during the so-called Christmas season. And there are many reasons why I really don't like this time of year. I'm not wild about winter. I'm not wild about all the nuttiness that surrounds Christmas. But I'm not also very wild about the fact that when I'm out and about in stores or whatever, every little kid looks at me and thinks I'm Santa Claus. That's because of my beard, obviously. And I smile at them and everything, but all these big-eyed little kids looking at me, And I don't believe in Santa Claus. I think Santa Claus is actually evil. That's another talk, but it brings up the subject which many people ask me, why do you wear a beard? And it's interesting because without understanding entirely why, some of you may know my story that I had a long history in cults and the occult. And the final stop on that cult train ride was the Mormon Church. And I became a leader in the Mormon Church. I was a Elders Quorum president, and I had a temple recommend, which meant I was pretty much the creme de la creme of Mormonism, at least on the local level. And they told me I had to be clean shaven. I couldn't be a church officer and have a beard. And I even said at the time, well, didn't some of the early Mormon prophets have a beard? Some of them looked like the Smith Brothers cough drops guy, Joseph Fielding Smith and whatnot. And I didn't Jesus have a beard? No. We don't pay attention to dead prophets. I was told we only pay attention to living prophets. So I had to get rid of my beard. Well, the first thing I did when I got born again in June of 1984 is I began to grow my beard back. Kind of as an act of rebellion. I didn't understand it at the time, but I didn't really realize until much later that Yahuwah wants his sons to have beards. And, I'm going to, before I go any further, I want to just read you a passage here. Everybody says, oh, if, God said it, I believe it, that settles it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, in Leviticus 19, in verse 27, here's a funny thing. See, many Christian preachers and teachers will use passages like verse 26 to tell people, okay, verse 26, you shall not eat anything with the blood, neither shall you use enchantment, nor observe times. So basically they say, oh, that says you can't do magic or sorcery, which I certainly agree with. You can't do astrology, which I certainly agree with. But then they skip over the next verse, verse 27, ye shall not round the corners of your heads, neither shall you mar the corners of thy beard. So, we're not supposed to destroy our beards. And people say, oh, well, that's, the Old Testament. We don't have to do that stuff anymore. Well, listen to what it says in the first chapter. Again, read the context. In verse 2 of that same chapter, Yahuwah says, speak unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, and say unto them, you shall be holy, for I, Yahuwah your Elohim, am holy. So, it would be a reasonable, deduction to think that, if you want to be holy, you need to keep everything in this chapter. And this includes honoring your parents. This includes many things which you hear preached all the time. In verse 4, stay away from idols. In verse 11, don't steal, nor lie to one another, neither deal falsely. In verse 12, it says, ye shall not swear by my name falsely. And it just goes on and on and on. Now, in verse 17, thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. And any preacher that's out there would agree wholeheartedly. They preach a whole sermon out of every one of these verses. And then it talks about sexual sin. And then all of a sudden, bam, there's verse 27, don't mar the corners of your beard. Don't destroy your beard. And they just go, whoa, They skip over that. I call it cafeteria Christianity. And I think it's unfortunate because what people don't understand is that the aesthetic, the style of fashion that we have today is basically Greco-Roman. If you look at this, it goes all the way back to Egypt Greece and Rome. Most of the pictures and sculptures that you see of men are clean shaven. I mean, pictures of all the Caesars, Augustus Caesar, Julius Caesar, Constantine, they're all clean shaven. And in the same way, the Egyptian pharaohs were clean shaven, except they wore fake little goatees made out of animal hair. And again, the Greeks were mostly clean shaven. So, are we supposed to follow the Greeks and follow the Romans, or are we supposed to follow the word of Yahuwah? And I would submit to you that we are to follow the word of Yahuwah. And I'll tell you, it makes a difference. When you wear a beard, it does make a difference spiritually, just like any other commandment. If you keep one of Yahuwah's commandments, he will bless you for it. He will bless you for it. And it does make a difference. And yes, you do stand apart from the world, but is that a bad thing? I mean, I don't want to look like the world. I want to look the way Yahushua wants me to look. And I figure Yahushua had a beard, Peter had a beard, James and John all had beards. So I'm going to have a beard. Now, it's not a salvation issue. I mean, if you're a man and you have a situation, maybe your job, because there are some jobs, like, for example, if you're in the military, you're not allowed to have much, if any, facial hair. And there are some other jobs that are like that, either executive or bank things or whatever it might be, where you're not allowed to have a beard. And that, if that's the case, Abba understands. But I would suggest maybe you want to get another job. And I know that may be easier said than done in this day and age. And you don't, when I say beard, you don't have to have a beard like this. You don't have to have a big, huge beard. You can have just a nicely, closely shaved beard or trimmed beard. I've done that. It's not required that you have a beard down to your knees or something like that, or look like, ZZ Top. Some people do that. That's between them and Yahuwah. But again, for their professional life or whatever, they may need to have a shorter beard, and that's fine. The main thing is you're not supposed to be shaving every day if you can possibly avoid it. And it's a commandment, and it's not one you should set aside lightly. Don't just set it aside because you say, "Oh, my girlfriend won't like it." Well, that's not a good enough reason. If your girlfriend is set apart, if you sit down with her and show her these things out of Leviticus 19, it should be fine. And if it isn't, maybe you need to find another girlfriend. And, most wives like beards. And, that's another subject altogether. But, I mean, I would say to you that, you need to, if your wife doesn't want you to have a beard, you need to talk to her about being in submission to the word of Yahuwah. Because the word of Yahuwah says we are not to destroy our beards. Because beards are part of the way he made men. And I would submit to you that both the Greek and the Roman cultures were very sexually ambivalent. I mean, there were a lot of homosexuals, there was a lot of cross-dressing, there was a lot of that kind of stuff going on in both Rome and Greece and even in Egypt. And the beard makes it very clear that you are a man. And, you don't see many nowadays, these transsexuals or whatever. I mean, none of them wear, beards like this. And that's because Yahuwah wants a clear distinction between the male and the female. Women don't have beards. Men have beards if they allow them to grow, if they don't destroy them. And that's part of his divine plan, to keep the genders distinct. So this idea of being bisexual or homosexual or transsexual or whatever other bizarre things are going on now. That is not of him. And most Christians understand that, but they don't understand that the beard is the clearest mark of being a son of Yahuwah, of being a child of the covenant of the living Elohim. There's other things you can do, and I recommend that you do. We've done teachings on the whole idea of wearing tzitzit. That's important too. But, sometimes those can be covered if you, like in wintertime, if you're out wearing a big coat. But the beard is there. And it is a testimony of the fact that you are a follower of the living Elohim of Israel, Yahuwah, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu. And you need to follow him. And while this might seem a minor thing to you, and again, I'm not saying if you shave off your beard you're going to go to hell. I'm not saying anything like that. But I am saying it is between you and Abba Father. And you need to take it seriously, just like any other commandment. If there is a compelling reason, like your job or you're being in the military, where you cannot do this, that's one thing. But if it's just a matter of taste or a matter of preference, I think you need to really repent and do teshuvah and go before the throne. Again, it doesn't have to be a big bushy beard. It could just be a very nicely trimmed beard. You know what I'm talking about. So take this seriously, brethren. This is a sermon for men. This is not a sermon, obviously, for women. Take the beard seriously. It is a sign of spiritual maturity. It's a sign of wisdom. And it's also a sign that you are being an obedient Talmid, an obedient disciple of Yahushua, the Messiah, who had a beard, and all of his disciples, all of his Talmidim had beards. That is without a doubt. So take this to heart, brethren, and realize there is spiritual power in obedience. Incredible spiritual power. And it may seem like a small thing, but if you understand, Abba Father is very pleased when we do small things for him. And we sometimes get big rewards for doing small things. But that isn't the reason we should do them. We should keep the commandments because we love him, because we want to please him, because we want to be close to him and have him be close to us and to bend down and embrace us and bless us because he is our Abba Father. And the beard is one of many signs that we acknowledge the fact that he is our Father. Pray about this, man. If you're struggling with the beard thing, or if you don't know for sure if you want to do this, please pray about it. Again, I'm not saying anybody that doesn't have a beard is, going to hell or anything of the kind. But I am saying you need to have a seriously good reason not to have one. And, beyond that, it's between you and the Father. I'm not judging you. I'm not trying to judge you. I'm just saying that this is the covenant. And it's one of the commandments that is relatively easy to keep. And as John says, his commandments are not grievous. They're a sign that we love him. So, grow a beard to show how much you love Yahuwah if you've not already done it. Thank you, brothers and sisters. We appreciate your watching this, and if you are blessed by it, please subscribe and share, and please pray about supporting our ministry. Thank you so much. Keep studying your scriptures, keep praying, and may you have shalom in all that you do.